Welcome to this new Manwha recap. Let's dive in and I hope you enjoy it. 7 years ago the dungeon break occurred. It marked the appearance of huge gates, with various types of monsters pouring out of them. Humanity suffered greatly that day, the death toll rising to shocking levels. That day Han Sunjun lost everything. His parents had been killed by the vicious beasts. He pledged to avenge them and kill each and every monster one day. Currently, Han Sunjun is sitting with his head lowered in the Catastrophe Memorial Park. Today, he had been kicked out of the Hunter Training Center. Usually the Awakened train for a few months, then debut as hunters. Strangely, Han Sunjun's stats had not increased even after diligently training each day for 7 years. Just then, he hears a widow speaking to her young daughter, how her dad passed away while saving people from the monsters. The girl shouts excitedly how she will be strong and never give up in tough situations, just like her father. Hearing that, something switches inside him and uplifts Sungwoo's spirit. He hadn't given up for the past 7 years, how can he stop now? He rushes to the home of Training Center's director and begs him to help him retake the hunter exam. The director sighs and punches Sunjun in the face, throwing him backwards. "You failure of a bastard," calls the director, and slams his doors shut. Lying there among the trash cans, under the rain, Sunjun thinks wistfully how if he also had a unique trait, no, if he had just a little talent, he could have passed the hunter exams. In that moment, a screen materializes in front of him. The ground beneath him turns to water and engulfs him. Just as he begins to suffocate, he is thrown out into a blank void. Another screen turns up, with easy, normal, and hard appearing as options. Realizing how the rewards will be proportional to the difficulty chosen, Sunjun follows his instincts and selects. The next moment, Sungwoo appears in a desert, a long sword thrown next to him. All around him are sand dunes, under the clear blue sky extending infinitely across the landscape. A bunch of notifications turn up. Survive against Sand Golem. Reward, obtaining a unique trait. Ecstatic that he would finally receive something he had trained for 7 years, Sunjun goes to pick up the sword. Just then, the sand behind him starts rising, with an enormous sand golem emerging out of the sand, and a timer starts counting down from 10 minutes. Lifting the sword, Han Sunjun starts sprinting, the sand golem hot on his tail. He soon realizes his stamina will plummet before the 10 minutes are up, the hot desert sapping away at his strength. Realizing that he stands to gain everything should he win, Sunjun devises an absurd plan to defeat the sand golem before it catches up to him. He remembers from his hero studies into the physiology of monsters how sand golems possess a core. Firmly gripping his sword, he climbs a sand dune and jumps forward from its peak, the sand golem now appearing right above him as Sunghun turns around. As the golem falls across the dune, he jumps from the high point and lands on the fallen golem's torso. The golem's red core is now within his reach. Alas, the core remains intact after one slash, and before Sunjun can strike again, the golem grabs his body, squeezing the life out of him. Desperately injecting all his strength into one final attack, he launches the sword towards the core like a spear. The sword impales the core, killing the sand golem with 7 minutes remaining on the timer. Reward, unlocked unique trait necromancy, 1000 points. Suddenly, the destroyed golem's core rises in the air, a dark red mist revolving around it. As soon as he touches it, another screen appears. As soon as he presses yes, the dark red fog rushes towards him from the hovering core, vanishing into his body. Number of spirits a fifth. By absorbing the spirit, Sunjun increased his stats, strength +3, health +2. After 7 years, his stats had finally increased. Entering the blue portal that appears in front of him, he opens his eyes in the waiting room. Immediately, all his injuries are healed. Sunjun moves towards the bed, the only object inside the marbled walls of the waiting room. As he lays on the bed, a window appears introducing him to info, store, community, inventory, and trial functions. Choosing the trial tab first, Sunghun discovers he has 24 hours before the next trial. Next, he selects the community function. In front of him appears a group chat, displaying various messages from all participants. All of a sudden, an admin posts messages in the community chat informing how the points awarded by trials act as currency in the tower, where not even a drop of water is free. Sunjun understands that to survive in the tower, he must continue attempting the trials. Looking at his sword, Sunjun also buys a basic shield from the store tab. Grabbing his shield and sword, Sunghun starts practicing, going through his stances. Afterwards, when he stops and lays on the floor, tired, a yellow glow surrounds him. Turns out the healing effect of the waiting room can help him keep practicing for much longer. At that moment, his stomach growls. He buys some jerky. Looking at the remaining 40 points, he now realizes, had he not received the additional reward of 500 points, he wouldn't have been able to buy a new shield. Sun Jun spends his time relaxing and preparing until only 17 minutes remain before the second trial. Hyping himself up, thinking how surviving the trials will help him achieve his goal, Sun Jun presses yes. He appears in a densely populated forest, the objective this time to assassinate the leader of the goblin tribe inhabiting a nearby valley. Scouting the orc settlement from a good distance, Sun Jun notices the different kinds of orcs, the powerful and fierce guards, the resilient hunters, and the small workers. Walking back into the forest, he prepares firewood, lights them on fire using some stones, and stores the burning logs in his inventory. Next morning, Sun Hoon overlooks the hunter orcs leaving the village for their daily hunt. Quickly returning, Sun Hoon runs around the village's perimeter, throwing logs out of his inventory, slowly setting the nearby trees on fires. Within a minute, the village is surrounded by burning tires, preventing the hunter orcs from returning to the village. Sun Hoon stalks the worker orcs running towards a nearby stream, intending to carry water to stop the fires. Just as the orcs lower their buckets, Sun Hoon stabs through their backs and absorbs their spirits. His necromancy proficiency rises to 9%. Feeling a presence behind them, he turns around to see a guard staring down at him. Raising his shield, he barely manages to block the guard's strike. Sun Hoon absorbs the stored spirits, strength +4, agility +2. In a couple minutes, he succeeds in killing off the guard, and absorbs its spirit, stamina +4, strength +2, agility +3. Sun Han walks steadily into the village, his increased stats allowing him to easily kill any orcs protecting the leader. All of a sudden, Sun Hoon shields his head, preventing the second guard's sword from chopping it off. Just as he steps aside and runs his sword through the guard's chest, the orc leader chants an incantation and sends a torrent of flames hurling towards him. The smoke vanishes, revealing Sun Hoon still standing, his clothes burnt off and shield ruined from blocking the flames. Achievement unlocked, the one who endures fire. Hair disheveled, blood streaming down his face, Sun Hoon stares at the terrified orc leader. "You're dead." Before the orc leader can send another ball of flames, Sun Hoon dashes forward, cutting off the leader's hands. The creature stares at the blood running down its arms with wide eyes, then rushes into its hut. Mad with anger, Sun Hoon advances calmly, slashing open the entrance. He freezes for a moment, looking at the leader sitting with two young orc, trembling in fear, with tears running down their faces. One child walks up to his leg, seemingly begging him to spare their lives. This scene reminds him of his own parents, so you value family too. Right at this moment, the child tries to stab him with a dagger. Utilizing his superior speed, Sun Hoon smashes its head, then cuts down the orc leader charging forward with a vicious gleam in its eyes. He had completed the second trial at last. Now, in the waiting room, Sun Hoon looks over his damaged shield. This trial was a close shave. Looking at the community tab, he discovers every successful trial awards one question voucher. These can be used to obtain information from the admins of the tower. Some participants had discovered a temporary return stone that would allow you to return to Earth for a few days after completing 5th floor. Items to permanently return to Earth are only available after the 7th floor. Looking over his unique trait, necromancy, his skills will place him equal to an A-rank hunter back on Earth. Sun Hoon absorbs the 5 spirits he had stored after the second trial, strength +9, stamina +10, agility +14, and magic power +6. Overflowing with power, he dashes across the room, laughing excitedly. Unable to properly control his new speed, he crashes into a wall, leaving an inches-deep imprint on the marble. Opening shop, he replaces his ruined shield with Big Dead Tree Shield for 2,100 points. This shield has a buff attached to it, activated whenever stamina drops low. He also equips the reward items from his previous trial, a black steel dagger and an assassin's cape, and starts practicing to adjust to them. For the third trial, he finds himself in an isolated cave, with stalactites hanging above, only illuminated by the light coming in from a hole in the ceiling. After 10 seconds, the Guardian of Darkness will enter, displays the tower. Sun Hoon prepares himself. As the timer reaches 0, he revolves his shield around, barely deflecting the strike from behind. He looks at the opponent, a pitch-black figure with red eyes and unnaturally sharp teeth. Defeat the Guardian of Darkness, Doppelganger. Sun Jun activates his skill, Fast Recovery, to heal the shallow cut he received, managing to protect his spine from being cut. He keeps engaging with his opponent, the doppelganger copying his moves and adopting his stances. This allows Sun Jiun to exploit the weaknesses in the creature's movements and land a few clean hits. Unfortunately, the doppelganger also has a healing ability and regenerates its wounds. Unexpectedly, as time passes, the creature becomes stronger, forcing Sun Hoon to finish the fight quickly. He activates the Assassin's Cape's innate effect, granting him plus 15% movement speed for 1 minute. He dashes towards the monster, dodging its strikes and manages to cut a deep gash in its shoulder. Sun Hoon smirks as the creature screams in pain. But, in the next instant, the doppelganger takes advantage of his lowered guard and launches a quick strike, separating Sun Jiun's arm at the shoulder. He howls with pain as blood spurts from his severed limb onto his face, barely keeping his eyes open. Sun Jiun looks at the creature standing still, healing from its own injuries, and then at the sword lying in the distance, deciding to utilize this chance. With 11 seconds of his heightened agility remaining, Sun Hoon brings his shield in front and charges at the doppelganger. Before the black creature can strike him, he slams his shield into it, then separates the monster's head using the shield's edge. "Congratulations, you have cleared the 3rd floor," declares the tower. Entering the waiting room, Sun Jiun is healed of all injuries and regains his cut-off arm, looking as good as new. Slowly placing his new hand on the marble wall, he lets loose a punch, smashing the wall in a meter-wide radius. Letting the tension leave him, he thinks of the doppelganger's stored spirit. This one appears denser than any previously stored spirits. As he absorbs it, his unique trait's proficiency reaches 100%, improving by 1 rank, resulting in unique trait necromancy. Opening the trait's description, Sun Hoon discovers an additional effect, allowing him to randomly gain any of the absorbed spirit's skills. Skills normally require one to persist in difficult situations, but with this he can easily obtain new skills. Opening the community tab, he discovers the next trial will be an integrated one, with him facing off against other participants. Meaning, in this trial, I might have to kill someone, thinks Sun Hoon, with wide eyes. As the trial begins, Sun Hoon appears in an abandoned castle, along with a girl holding a staff and a muscular man wielding a giant sword. They introduce themselves as Lee Hayan, former E-rank hunter, specializing in support magic, and Lee Sung-hoon, former D-rank hunter specialized in close combat. Lee Sung-hoon orders Sun Jiun to stay at the back. When Sun Jiun mentions he was an aspiring hunter, already used to such treatment, Sun Jiun keeps silent and walks behind them. The trial begins shortly, a 3 versus 3 scenario. Whichever team of participants kills the boss first wins. As the gate opens, they come face to face with a horde of goblins. Leading the party, Lee Sung-hoon finds it difficult to handle the relentless and organized attacks of the goblins. He shouts at Lee Hayan to stop any offensive magic and starts supporting him. Seeing Sun Jiun standing still, calls him a newbie and asks him to start fighting, all the while ignoring the goblins dead at Sun Jiun's feet. Seeing him about to be overcome by the goblins, Sun Jiun rushes forward to help, with Lee Hayan shouting at him to just watch her back. But as she turns around to fight off the goblins supposed to be attacking them from behind, all she can see are corpses lying around. At this moment, a goblin throws his flail at Lee Sung-hoon, catching him off guard. His sword ends up getting thrown away in an attempt to parry it. Lee Sung-hoon closes his eyes, about to be cut down by goblins, wishing he didn't have the newbie on his team. Feeling no pain, he opens his eyes, saved by that very same newbie. After protecting him, Sun Jiun dashes across the battlefield, making short work of the remaining goblins. Accomplishment obtained, Goblin Hunter. All the while Lee Sung-hoon stands there, mouth wide open, watching the newbie slaughter all the goblins. Watching his teammates ignore the goblin spirits rushing towards his body, Sun Jiun feels comfortable knowing others can't see his unique trait at work. Absorbing the stored spirits, his stats increase further: strength +3, agility +4, stamina +2, endurance +7. He also gains a skill ranger's knowledge from a spirit, widening his field of view. Walking back to his teammates, Sun Jiun asks Lee Sung-hoon to protect Lee Hayan at the back. They keep advancing, with Sun Jiun taking care of all goblins they come across, storing their spirits, his necromancy's proficiency increasing to 12%. Eventually, they come across dead goblins, killed by the second team. Sun Jiun asks everyone to hurry up, because should the other team kill the boss before them, they will have to face the death penalty. On the other side, the second team finishes off the goblins in their path. Just as they are about to open the boss room, a red barrier appears, surrounding half the city. A message appears, announcing that the boss battle will only begin when a single team remains. Soon, Sun Jiun and his teammates reach them as well. Sun Jiun leaves his teammates behind, stating he will defeat the second team all by himself. As he walks forward, Lee Hanyon casts her spell, boosting Sun Ji-yoon's agility by 2 points for 10 minutes. After killing and absorbing 30 goblins, Sun Ji-yoon is confident in dealing with the other team on his own. He launches towards his opponents, dust clouds kicking up behind him. One of the 3 sets up a shield, but it fails to stop Sun Ji-yoon, getting destroyed with just 1 attack from his sword. He rushes through their formation, killing 2 of them with the 3rd fending off his strike. After a few seconds, Sun Ji-yoon appears confused after his opponent manages to parry all his strikes. Focusing on his opponent's red eyes, Sun Ji-yoon realizes he must have a skill to predict his sword movements, allowing him to block them all. Sun Ji-yoon throws his shield at his face, obstructing the opponent's sight. Before he can understand what's happening, Sun Ji-yoon slashes at his chest, instantly killing him. A notification pops up, informing them that they can proceed to the boss fight. Sun Ji-yoon stalls for a moment, looking down at the dead bodies, coming to terms with the blood of another human on his hands. With a blank face, Sun Ji-yoon questions his teammates in an emotionless voice whether they are ready for the boss fight. Seeing them reply in agreement, Sun Ji-yoon advances forward. The fight ends up as expected, with Sun Ji-yoon killing the giant Goblin King by himself. His teammates stare at him with wide eyes and mouths open in surprise as he looks over the completion rewards. Reward, all stats +4. Skill obtained, instant acceleration. Feeling awkward, Lee Sun-hoon leaves for the waiting room, leaving Lee Hae-in focusing on Sun Ji-yoon. She consoles him that killing the other team was necessary. Had he not killed them, she would have gladly done so. With a stunned expression, Sun Ji-yoon allows a smile on his face. His gloomy expression melts away, glad she thinks so. Next, she thanks him for helping them complete the 4th trial, comfortable with not receiving any rewards, since he took care of everything himself. Before leaving, she sends him a friend request, and asks him to look for Lee Hae-in of the White Silver Guild when he returns to Earth. Now alone, Sun Ji-yoon finally decides to absorb the dead human's spirits, promising to himself how he would only kill people when it's the last option. His goal of advancing through the tower must be achieved at all costs. Entering the waiting room, a screen materializes, requesting him to enter his nickname. Sun Ji-yoon types in Hunter, appearing at the 16th rank with a rating of. The tower goes on to inform that the top 50 rankers, called Pioneers, will receive benefits on the 8th floor. If a player remains within the top 50 up till the 8th floor, he will receive a privilege called a halo. Deciding to worry about it when the time comes, Sun-woon absorbs the stored spirits, feeling his stats finally surpass the limits of humanity. He then buys a return stone, allowing him to return to Earth for 3 days. Grabbing his equipment, Sun Ji-yoon uses the return stone, vanishing from the waiting room. Opening his eyes, Sun Ji-yoon finds himself lying on his bed, back in his house on Earth. Feeling the soft bed, he closes his eyes, only to sit right up, smelling the odor coming from his body. As he moves to take a bath, he looks down to discover his shield and sword have been brought back with him. Sun Ji-yoon understands that within a few days, the tower items will start getting brought to Earth, pushing down the prices of equipment. He must sell his items before that happens, for which he needs a hunter qualification. He dials up Director H1, mentioning that he isn't calling for a refund, and instead asks the director to help him apply for the hunter exam. The director starts to speak of the futility of applying for the hunter exam with no unique trait, but shuts up and agrees when Sun-woon mentions he is willing to pay for this favor. After taking a bath, Sun Ji-yoon locks his apartment door, running into his neighbor. Greeting her with a smile, he walks ahead. Behind him, the lady looks at his back with a slight blush on her face, wondering when did her neighbor get so tall. Outside, unable to catch a taxi, Sun Ji-yoon decides to jump across the rooftops, reaching the Hunter Association in no time with his extreme agility. Reaching there, he meets with Director H. Hwang and Inspector Kim Ne-hoo, who will be grading the performance. With Director H. Hwang's recommendation, the theoretical portion was exempt, leaving only the practical exam to be completed. Watching over him, Director H. Hwang requests for Sung-woon to be failed as quickly as possible, and Inspector Kim Ne-hoo promises he has prepared the worst possible matchup for a swordsman. With the option to choose the difficulty, Sun Ji-yoon surprises everyone by choosing the highest difficulty, level 10. As the test begins, a phoenix appears, flying in the air with flames hovering around it. Immediately, a tower notification appears, informing his movement speed has decreased by 25% because of the phoenix's skill, Predator's Roar. Nevertheless, he calmly looks up at the flying phoenix, his eyes filled with determination. Looking down, Director H. Hwang smirks to himself, thinking back on how he had sabotaged Sun Ji-yoon's sword for the test, just to ensure he would fail. This is what happens when you don't know your place. He thinks inwardly. Manwha thinks back to the time he became a hunter, initially confident. His happiness faded away when the gap between him and his colleagues grew. Unable to catch up to them, he gave up trying and came to terms with his weakness, consoling himself with the belief that giving up when you can't overcome your limitations is only natural. This is why he can't stand watching Sun Jiun trying his best, even in the face of multiple failures. In the fight, Sun Jiun's sword soon snapped in half. Thinking inwardly, no matter how low a weapon's grade is, it shouldn't snap. Looking at the director staring down at him with a smirk, he realizes who is responsible for sabotaging his test. Activating his skill, Instant Acceleration, Sun Jiun jumps upward, deflecting towards the phoenix from the ceiling and stabs the half-snapped sword into its eye. Landing down, he picks up a tile, winds his arm and then throws it at the phoenix. The tile divides the flying phoenix's head vertically in half and keeps flying forward, with its momentum not decreasing even a little. The tile ends up passing between the director and instructor, destroying the railing, and lodges itself in the wall. With the test complete, Sun Jiun looks up at them innocently, apologizing for the tile and asking if they're alright. Eventually, he is registered as a C-rank hunter and receives his hunter card. Sitting in another room, Manwha slaps his hand on the desk, loudly questioning how Sungwoon could have passed his test. Instructor Kim mentions how he would have faced problems with the Hunter Association should he have interfered with Hunter Sungwoon's registration. Before he can finish another sentence, Sun Jiun enters the room, informing them of his promotion. While Instructor Kim Ni-hoo congratulates him, he walks up to Director Wang. He ponders loudly, "Director, you retired as a C-rank hunter, right? Remember when you called me a failure? Instead, I think you are the real failure." Hearing this, Manwha loses his cool and moves to punch him. Sun Jiun calmly dodges, striking the director in his ribs, causing his breath to leave his body. This is self-defense, he speaks calmly, then slaps Manwha with such force that he flies backwards. And this is payback. All the while, the director wonders how a C-rank hunter can be so powerful, the pain soon leaving him unconscious. Afterwards, Instructor Kim offers Sun Jiun to work exclusively for the Hunters Association, with a salary of 1 million won. Hearing that, Sun Jiun speaks how he believes the instructor manipulated the test difficulty. Turning around, he side-eyes him, speaking how he won't pursue this issue, but he can't work with backstabbing people. 2 days later, Sun Jiun is at his home, watching the news regarding the tower rumors spreading around. Seems like everyone knows about the trials now, he thinks to himself. He was able to sell the equipment he brought out in time, and is now holding new items he bought on Earth, prepared as his 3-day time period comes to an end. As his surroundings disappear, floating in space, Sun Jiun looks eager for his next trials with a wide smirk on his face. Sun Jiun appears on his bed in the waiting room. As expected, he is able to bring the items from Earth. Standing quickly, just as he is warming up for the 5th trial, a screen comes up, congratulating him for returning first from Earth and awarding him a skill, Eyes of the Truth. This skill allows him to view the details of any item and discover the truth of any person's words. Smiling wildly, he buys a Thunder Sword for 5,500 points and Secretive Hunter's Shield worth 3,800 points. The Thunder Sword carries a 10% chance of paralyzing the enemy. Wishing to start his 5th trial, he jumps into the portal. The objective this time is to defeat a wolf person, the leader of wolves inhabiting a gorge. Sun Jiun is transported to a narrow valley, surrounded on all sides by steep rocky mountains. Wolves can be seen surrounding him from above. As they pounce towards him, Sungwoon kills them all, his figure appearing like a blur between the monsters. Thinking they are weak, he is stunned when a group of giant white-furred wolves appear. They have bulging muscles and vicious red eyes, their jaws equal in size to the previous wolves. Smiling excitedly at the challenge before him, he charges towards the creatures, dodging their sharp teeth, all the while slicing open their necks. As the dead beasts pile around him, a bunch of notifications flash up. His skills had increased in proficiency, with Hunter Dagger skill leveling up to E+ and Fast Recovery advancing to D rank. He absorbs the spirits of the crazy wolves, his necromancy proficiency reaching 16%. Moving forward into the valley, Sungwoon is surprised to see dead wolves lying in front of him. There are sword marks on their bodies and on the surrounding rocky structure. Using Eyes of the Truth on one such slash, he discovers it was made using something mentioned as aura. The weird situation makes him uneasy, still he keeps advancing. Suddenly an object flies towards him, sliding on the ground. Looking closely, it's the corpse of the wolf person. Notifications appear around him, informing that an intruder had interfered with the trial. The trial's objective now changes, asking him to kill the interdimensional intruder. A bulky figure, covered with a domineering figure covered in gladiator-like armor, appears in his sight. Glowing purple eyes staring at him through the helmet's visor, the gladiator taunts him and calls him a primitive barbarian. Sweat drips down his face as he senses the oppressive atmosphere emanating from the being, aware that he is not facing a normal opponent. As the intruder charges towards him, Sun Jiun tosses the wolf Perron's corpse in its way. The gladiator swings its sword, a purple aura surrounding it, and cleanly bisects the dead body in two. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Sun Jiun stabs at its side, but unexpectedly his sword fails to pierce the high-quality armor. Gotha, the intruder, swings his sword, purple aura creating an arc in the air, as Sun Jiun barely manages to block it with his sword hand. He flies backward from the force, smashing into the mountain wall, his arm broken at the wrist. Sun Jiun adopts a scared expression on his face, shouting he had never heard of an intruder before. He keeps muttering why this kind of stuff always happens to him and how unlucky he is. Satisfied at seeing its prey trembling with fear, the intruder decides to indulge Sun Jiun's curiosity and explains the concept of intruders. The gladiator explains he's from a different world and that the feature of floor intrusion only unlocks at the tower's 8th floor. Sun Jiun activates his eyes of the truth, confirming the figure is speaking the truth. All of a sudden, the figure's patience vanishes, and he starts advancing, angry at how Sun Woon had used a skill on him. In that moment, Sun Jiun's eyes harden, his body no longer trembling with fear, and the worry in his eyes turns to firm resolve. He lets go of the bent hand he was holding, the bones snapping back into place, all his injuries healing in a second. Turns out, he had been holding back the activation of the skill accelerated regeneration. By putting up the facade of a defeated enemy, he had fished out the required information. Now, Sun Jiun absorbs the stored spirits, strengthening himself, strength +2, dexterity +3, stamina +3, magic +5, endurance +7. Next, he activates the Assassin's Cloak's special effect, boosting movement speed by 15% for 1 minute. Now, even with its aura, the gladiator is unable to injure Sun Woon as he flies in and out of its reach. Although he can't pierce the armor, Sun Jiun still keeps attacking, waiting for an opportunity. Soon enough, the Thunder Blade's paralyzing effect activates, yellow lightning arcing over the gladiator's body, disabling its movements. Unable to move, the gladiator mutters in an irritated tone, questioning how a mere 5th floor challenger can possess so many skills. As Sun Jiun raises his sword, the intruder hurriedly speaks how he can provide even more valuable information, to which he emotionlessly replies, "I don't need it," and runs his sword through his visor. A screen appears congratulating him on completing 5th floor. Looking down at the now dead, he realizes he is becoming numb to killing other people. Watching its soul materialize, Sun Woon quickly absorbs it, having forgotten it in the moment. His necromancy proficiency is now at 15%. Notifications start appearing, informing how the rewards will be modified to match the increased difficulty of the trial. Obtain skill 3 lacerations. Completion reward 7,500 points. Additional reward 3,500 points. Entering the portal to the waiting room, all his injuries are once again healed. Thinking quietly to himself about the idea of dimensional invasion, Sun Woon realizes he can never let his guard down inside the tower. Using his question vouchers for the first time, Sun Woon inquires about floor invasion and whether he can be notified of it. Instantly, he receives a reply stating only a challenger's trial within the first 10 classes can be invaded, except for any special trials, like a combined trial. This feature can only be accessed on the 8th floor. Next, Sun Jiun brings out the chest he had brought from Earth, the Rokan's Magic Tower's Restoration Box, a one-use item, and consumes it to restore his shield to brand new. He also brings out a cleaning stone, using it to remove the dirt and grime from his body instantly. Taking a look at the leaderboard, he finds himself at the 3rd spot, with an overall evaluation of. He had jumped from the 16th spot to 3rd. Checking the community tab, he is surprised to only see comments on how murdering people is the most effective method to gain achievements and all that. The helpful and orderly chat had now turned into chaos, with people encouraging others to actively commit murder. Closing the chat, Sun Jiun enters the portal for the 6th trial. The objective this time is to capture any one of the surrounding red tiles. The trial is being conducted across an ocean, floating planks forming pathways among massive red tiles. Just then, a portal appears in front of him, along with a notification informing that a teammate is being selected for him. After a few seconds, instead of a teammate, a spear flies out of the portal. Barely managing to dodge it, Sun Jiun grabs the shaft and yanks it towards him, pulling the person holding the spear out of the portal. asking what the hell he is doing. The guy simply replies that murdering is the best way to obtain achievements. Sunjun asks whether murdering a human means nothing to him, to which the guy laughs madly, calling Sunjun a hypocrite, and asks him to look around. All around them are the shouts of teammates killing each other. Two teammates shake hands, both glad to have met someone who doesn't wish to kill their teammate. The guy looks around at all the killing, lamenting that the ones dying should have paid attention to their backstabbing teammates. Suddenly, he finds a dagger sticking into his chest. The girl replies calmly with a smile that he should have been careful as well. Because of her actions, she receives an achievement Dirty Murderer, increasing her durability stat by 1 as well. As Sunjun is looking at them, his teammate decides to take advantage of the situation, taking out a hidden dagger and rushing at him. Just before the dagger reaches Sunjun, he moves aside, stabbing his teammate with the spear. In his last moment, the teammate can only wonder how Sunjun reacted so quickly. A screen appears, notifying him of an achievement traitor, raising his strength by 1. At that moment, Sunjun decides he won't go around killing others, but will not hesitate to retaliate when someone attacks him. To make others fear him, Sunjun destroys another competitor's defensive skill with his body alone. Thinking he is a ranker, everyone runs away from him as Sunjun sits quietly on a red tile. The 10-minute timer for the capturing of the tile starts counting down. Looking at the weak competitors, Sunjun understands the high rankers had completed the 6th floor before him as he returned to Earth for 3 days. Breaking him out of his thoughts, a screen informs him that another team has invaded his tile, interrupting the capturing process. Turning around, Sunjun spots 4 people walking together. It seemed these 4 had decided to stick together to kill everyone else easily. 2 of them charge towards him. One of them, named Kim Jin-hun, uses his unique trait, Heart Solidarity, sharing any pain he suffers with Han Sunjun. Doing so, he stabs his dagger through his hand. Instantly, Han Sunjun feels an incredible pain in his hand, dropping his sword. His skill Pain Resistance activates, decreasing the pain by 15%. The other guy throws water at Han Sunjun, drenching him in the seawater. Turns out this is water from the ocean surrounding them. Touching this water, Han Sunjun's strength, agility, and stamina are reduced by 10 for the next 3 minutes. Only now he realizes there is a penalty for touching the ocean water. Still, as they reach near him, Sunjun smiles widely, thinking how their plan would have worked had he been a normal challenger. Welcome to part 2 of this manhwa recap. This will cover all of the remaining chapters that are left. Let's dive in and I hope you enjoy it. This is totally the worst situation. For a normal player, that is, thinks Sunjun with a delighted smile. He praises their plan and admits it is good. But they made one very lethal mistake. They picked the wrong opponent. He grabs one of the guy's face, then smashes it hard into the platform. Cracks appear on the red tile. As the man dies right away, the other 3 look wide-eyed with horror as Sunjun stands among the dust clouds resulting from the force. Tower notifications crop up. Achievement gained, 1-hit killer. Skill gained, contempt for the weak. If the opponent can't surpass any of his abilities, Sunjun's strength will increase proportional to the gap in power. As the bald swordsman swings at him, contempt for the weak activates and increases his strength by 1. Sunjun dodges aside, then slams his knee into the opponent's face. Then he spins in the air and slams his heel into the swordsman's head, his head deflating abnormally from the impact. Another screen appears informing, achievement gained, Merciless Killer, raising his dexterity by 1. The remaining 2 grind their teeth in frustration, watching how Sunjun killed 2 of their teammates within seconds. As Sunjun approaches, the leader cuts off Kim Jin-hyun's leg, the said pain transferring to Sunjun. Both he and Kim Jin-hyun fall to the floor, clutching their legs in pain. Just as Sunjun stands back up, the leader starts stabbing into the fallen Kim Jin-hyun's chest, ignoring his painful screams. Sunjun recognizes that he can't face the leader in this situation. Even a moment's distraction can lead to death in battle. Realizing this, he quickly hurls his shield at the screaming Kim Jin-hyun's direction, the shield's sharp tip separating his head from the shoulders. Instantly, Sunjun falls to the floor, eyes wide with immense pain, grabbing at his neck. The leader rushes forward to take advantage of this chance, but at the last moment Sunjun stops his sword between his hands, then breaks it off in the middle. Seeing this, the leader smiles awkwardly, realizing he failed. Before the enemy can even understand what's happening, Sunjun cuts away his head with the snapped sword. As always, the tower informs him, achievement gained, Cold-Blooded Climber, earning him 1,500 points. Eventually, the trial came to an end when all the red tiles were occupied. Most of the victors included challengers who didn't kill their teammates. Of course, there were some exceptions. Sun Jiun thinks to himself, if all these murder achievements were encouraged in the chat by someone for a specific purpose. He is notified of his rewards, a random box and 8,000 points. After storing all the dead challengers' souls, his necromancy proficiency finally reaches 100%, leveling up to rank D. Entering the 7th floor's waiting room, he takes a look at his achievements list. All the achievements he received from killing other challengers awarded him with skills, increased stats, or points. As he opens the random box, a small green goblin-like creature jumps out of it, somersaulting in the air as it lands. It looks at him with caution, while Sun Jiun wonders what he's supposed to do with it. Sun Jiun tries catching the small agile creature as it easily dodges his hands. Eventually he ends up catching it, only for the creature to close its sharp jaws around his hand, forcing him to release it. With his patience running thin, Sun Jiun makes use of his superior agility and kicks the creature with such force that its head depresses inwards. The creature bursts apart and a notification informs him he has obtained the best rank item from the gacha. A wrought iron pendant materializes in front of him. Its best skill is a defensive ability, Iron's Protection, using the caster's mana in return for no cooldown. Grabbing the item, he triggers its ability, a screen informing him that his skin will now absorb 10% of all physical damage. Along with that, his sword skills also improve by 7%. In an instant, the skill deactivates, a notification informing him that his magic power has run out. Surprised at the ability's insane magic drain, he decides to only use it as a final option. Just then the tower announces that he can begin his next trial straight away. It seems that the wait time before the next trial has been removed. In the group chat, other players aren't too excited about it. Other than the high rankers, everyone else needs a few days of preparation before each trial. Sun Jiun then decides to take a look at the now D-ranked unique trait, Necromancy. Looking over its description, he can now recover his magic power using stored souls. A new additional effect has also been included. His stored souls can now be used to absorb a specific amount of physical damage. Deciding to test the defensive ability, he flings his sword in the air and extends his arm below it. Even if it got cut off, he can regenerate it using the waiting room's healing feature. As the sword lands, his arm remains uninjured. A red glow becomes visible around him, signifying that the defensive property of necromancy worked. A screen informs him one of his stored souls has been consumed, bringing them down to 3/30. Satisfied with what he is seeing, Sun Jiun decides to leave some souls and not consume all of them, so they can absorb damage. Opening the leaderboard, he is now ranked 4th, having dropped 1 rank. He doesn't care about his rank, as long he stays among the top 50 to obtain pioneer benefits on the 8th floor. Bored out of his mind, with nothing else to do, he enters the portal for the 7th floor's trial. A bunch of screens emerge, stating that this trial consisted of 3 individual trials. He has to complete these trials within 40 minutes. The reward for successful completion will be in ranked skill wins grace. Sun Jiun appears in a long corridor, illuminated by fires burning on lamps on both sides. After walking for a couple minutes, he sees a light at the end of the corridor. Exiting through it, he appears in the same desert environment from the first trial. Suddenly the sand starts shifting and the sand golem gradually emerges out of the earth. This one is almost 3 times bigger than the first floor's golem. The golem winds up and swings its fist toward him. Equipping his items, he runs up the golem arm and jumps on its head. Looking around its body, he can't see the core. The core must be located inside its body, he thinks to himself. With a sudden burst of speed, the golem ends up capturing Sun Jiun in its hand. As the golem starts crushing him, Sun Jiun shatters the hand from within. He dashes across the golem's huge body, slicing and slashing at everything. Landing on the ground, he watches as the golem repairs itself, proving that it can only be defeated by destroying its core. Roaring at him, the golem all of a sudden jumps up in the air, dust clouds moving outwards around its feet. Realizing what it's going to do, the calm expression on his face vanishes and Sun Jiun starts rushing away with as much speed as he can muster. Behind him, the golem rolls its body inwards in the air, appearing similar to a cannonball, and drops down to the ground. The shockwave generated from it crashing into the sand sends Sun Jiun flying and crashing into a sand dune. As the sand settles down, he looks at the angry golem with an annoyed face. As the golem starts getting up, he activates his skill triple laceration, strengthening his sword and increasing the cutting power of the next 3 strikes. Charging forward, he cuts off the golem's arm, the huge mass of solid sand dropping down to the desert floor. He keeps cutting the golem even as it slowly regenerates. After continuously slicing apart the golem, Sun Jiun stops with sweat running down his face. Suddenly, he realizes that while the golem keeps regenerating easily, its size has decreased from the start. Understanding that the golem can't use the nearby sand to boost its size, Sun Jiun starts hacking away at its limbs again. Within a couple minutes, the golem is reduced to Sun Jiun's height. At this moment, the core on its back becomes visible, no longer covered by the tons of sand. The golem, now much smaller, has become faster than its previous size. Nevertheless, Sun Jiun decides to finish this quickly. Having spent 10 minutes from the total 40, he appears at its back and drives his sword through the red core. A screen pops up, confirming that he had killed the golem and overcome his fear. Just then his surroundings break down, transferring him to the second trial. He turns around to absorb the golem's spirit. Unfortunately, the soul extraction fails and he is transported to the second trial. Cursing his luck, Sun Jiun opens his eyes in the hut of the orc leader he had killed on a previous floor. He walks over the leader's corpse and heads outside. There he sees the whole orc settlement burning in blazing flames. In front of him stands the group of hunter orcs who had been away from the village during his attack. Enraged at seeing the murderer of their brethren, the hunter orcs enter the berserk state. Sun Jiun irritatedly wonders how unlucky he is, as the whole group of berserk orc hunters charge towards him, viciously swinging their weapons. All of a sudden, Sun Jiun's expression hardens and his face appears cold-blooded. "How dare you monsters show pain from losing your families in front of me?" Sun Jiun states quietly. Activating his skills, instant acceleration and 3 lacerations, he jumps towards the monsters. In a few seconds, dead orcs covered in blood are scattered all around. Sun Jiun speaks to the remaining orc kneeling in front of him, how it must feel to watch your family die while you are helpless to save them. The orc puts up one last attack, but he streaks past him, the orc's head flying off its shoulders. The tower congratulates him on completing the trial and overcoming his wisdom. Remembering his blunder in the last trial, he quickly stores all the orc souls, raising his proficiency to 6% and possessed souls to 19. As he is teleported through the void, his skills keep updating. Hunter Dagger levels up to rank and instant acceleration rises to rank. Sun Jiun finds himself in the ocean setting from the 6th floor trial. The water crashes across the floating logs as he stands there alone, no one else in sight. Taking out a health potion from his inventory, he chugs it down, restoring his stamina and magic power by 20%. Satisfying a grudge, he throws the empty potion bottle into the surrounding water, just for the sake of littering in the tower. All of a sudden, water starts shooting upwards, sending the floating tiles into the water. Activating his Assassin's Cape's ability, increasing his movement speed by 15% for 1 minute. He rushes towards the red tile in the distance. Behind him, the rising currents of water shatter the tiles. Just as he is feeling confident of outpacing the water tides with his current speed, the water beneath him shoots up, rocketing his tile into the air. Losing his footing from the surprise, Sun Jiun comes in contact with the ocean water. A screen comes into view, informing him his strength, agility and stamina are reduced by 10 for 3 minutes. He had thought that the tiles would burst apart in order, not randomly, and it had cost him. Mustering his strength, he activates instant acceleration, jumping across the rising tiles. Soon the larger red tile appears in his vision. As he runs towards it, tendrils of the ocean water close in on him. Using his agility, he is able to dodge the unnatural water movements. Just then, a water tendril slams into his back and swallows him up. Sun Jiun prepares for the expected pain to arrive, but amazingly he feels no pain. Quickly thinking, he activates the wrought iron pendant's skill, Iron Protection, his skill now absorbing 10% of the damage. Just then screens appear, notifying him that a soul had absorbed the damage. "This is why I felt no pain," Sun Jiun realizes. Jumping down on the tiles, the Assassin's Cloak's exclusive ability gets deactivated as its time runs out. Worried that he won't be able to use Iron's protection for a second time as his magic power is depleted, Sun Jiun consumes another soul to replenish his magic power. As he reaches a few feet away from the red tile, water shoots up in front of him, blocking his path. With water converging on his location from behind, he quickly makes a decision. Crossing his arms in front of his face, with his shield in front, he jumps through the water geyser. He arrives at the other side uninjured, black lightning surrounding him, signifying the absorption of damage by a stored soul. He crashes onto the red tile, another 2 souls absorbing the force, cracks appearing all around him. As the dust settles, he sees the water approaching his location from all sides. The water freezes inches away from him as the tower congratulates him on completing the third trial, proving he has overcome his hesitation. Another bunch of screens pop up, informing him of his rewards for the 7th floor's trial. Skill gained, wins grace. Entering the waiting room, Sun Jiun realizes he almost failed the trial multiple times, were it not for his insane luck. He doubts he will be so lucky in the coming trials. Just then, a tremor moves through the waiting room, bringing his attention to the new notifications. Turns out a system expansion has occurred after 1,000 challengers completed the 7th floor trial. A skill shop and trial junction has been created along with permanent return and floor invasion features now being unlocked. As a pioneer in all the floors, the tower asks him to select a halo from 3 choices: Ruler, Healer, and Monk. Reading through their descriptions, he learns that the Ruler halo affects all abilities and unique traits. This halo has been recommended as the most suitable for him. The Hunter halo boosted the proficiency gains of abilities and skills. It is described as somewhat suitable for him, whereas the Monk halo requires both immense time and talent to shine through. Dismissing the Monk halo completely, he considered the other 2. After a moment's thought, he chooses the Ruler halo. The golden glow surrounds him. Under the Hall's effect, his unique trait necromancy is being evolved. Based on his previous actions, 3 evolution paths for necromancy appear before him: Summoner, Magic Swordsman, and Creator. Without any hesitation, he chooses Summoner. Another screen pops up informing him of the creation of a unique authority, Skill Synthesization. Finally, all these changes combine. Annex in his body as dark red fog vanishes into his chest. After the halo's changes are complete, Sun Jiun scrolls through his skill list, looking for any to use his skill synthesization on. Finally, he combines Extinction of the Weak and Combat Continuation. Proceeding with the synthesization, a new skill is created. A new skill, Forceful Breakthrough, has been created. The skill allows the user to break through any restrictions or traps if their mana level is higher than the entrappers. He had assumed he would receive an E rank skill from combining 2 F ranks, but he got a D rank. Happy with the synthesized skill he obtained, he tries it again. This time he combines Ranger's Knowledge and Fire Resistance, but this time he receives an E rank skill, Strengthened Eyes. It has a basic effect of allowing sight in obscured environments and strengthening eyesight. Analyzing the situation, the reason becomes obvious. These 2 skills had weak compatibility with each other, resulting in an average synthesized skill. Sighing, he falls on the bed, thinking over the halo and the skill synthesization ability. He wonders if he achieved these abilities through his hard work, or just because of luck. Coming up with nothing, he decides to check out the skill he received. Wins Grace increases all speed by 7%. Can be stacked 7 times. After utilizing maximum stacks, it has a 1-day cooldown. He gets excited at reading the skill's description. At 7 stacks, he could raise his speed by 70%, and all this without consuming any mana. Such a skill has almost no drawbacks. Then he takes out the item, Boots of Swiftness. It raises attack speed and movement speed by 3% and 5%, respectively. It seems that all the 7th floor's rewards are related to speed. This makes him happy, now that another aspect of his fighting ability has improved. Next, he opens the skill store and buys Magic Circuit for 15,000 points and Magic Resistance for 12,000 points. Both these skills complement each other to a great extent. He will no longer be affected by any skills like the Heart Solidarity of Kim Jinhyun from the 6th floor's trial. Right at this moment, he feels pain shoot up from everywhere in his body as red lines appear over his skin. A notification informs him that mana circuits are being engraved in his body, effectively improving his mana efficiency. After seconds of feeling as if his body is burning, Sun Jiun gets up and walks to the center of the waiting room. His body now feels much lighter. He raises his right foot, then smashes it lightly, destroying the floor easily. He analyzed that the mana circuit skill must have improved his physical abilities as well. Satisfied, he next looks over his new ability to raise dead creatures. Using the stored souls, he can raise a dead person, its level proportional to the quality and quantity. Now he decides whether to complete another trial or return to Earth. Back on Earth, in front of a dungeon gate, is sitting an E-rank hunter. He is worried about the request he had posted, but still no one desires to party up with him. At this moment, 3 men walk up to him. Their leader, a round chubby man, asks him to hand over the gate entrance license for some cash. When the hunter refuses, the chubby man points out that he only has a limited time period to clear the dungeon. Otherwise, his license will be forfeit. Might as well do it now to earn some cash. He further mentions how no one would party up with an E rank, pointing over to the hunters already present. Just then, a voice rings out from the back. Is there still a spot in your team? The crowd parts to reveal Han Sunjun, who walks up to the E rank, presents his license as a C rank and asks to be on his team. Seeing this, the chubby man places his hand on Sunjun's shoulder and asks him to wait for his turn, to which Sunjun mentions he should join the party. Also, says Sunjun, a dark menacing aura pouring off him, get that hand off me before I break it. Scared by the energy released by Sunjun, the chubby hunter wonders how another C rank can possess this strong a presence. His lackeys misunderstand the situation, thinking that it was their boss showing his strength. Coughing to calm himself, the chubby C rank bluffs how he will ignore it this time, as the association officials are watching. He then turns around, much to the confusion of his lackeys. Turning to the E rank hunter, named Li Qiaowen, Sunjun suggests entering the dungeon by themselves as no one else is interested. Entering the dungeon, Sunjun mentions there is no need to be nervous. Li Qiaowen politely suggests he should take the lead as he has more experience entering dungeons than Sunjun. Sunjun, unwilling to reveal his status as a Tower of Trials challenger, agrees. Soon they come across a lizardman wielding a spear. Nervously, Li Qiaowen mentions he will attract the creature's attention while Sunjun should look for an opening. Sunju quietly agrees, curious how experienced hunters deal with such situations. To his surprise, both of them stand in place, swinging their weapons, trying to intimidate the other. Thinking how he only has 3 days to spend on Earth, Sunjun asks to take charge, and kills the lizardmen in seconds. With instant acceleration active, he runs through the dungeon killing all lizardmen before they can even put up a fight. Li Qiaowen watches all this wide-eyed, thinking he is experiencing the rise of a super rookie. Sunjun removes the cores from the dead lizardmen, a D rank item useful for alchemy or crafting, absorbing the lizardmen's souls, each providing a mere 0.7% proficiency increase. They soon reach a red portal, the entrance to the boss room. Without taking any break, they enter through the portal and come across a huge red lizard king sitting on a throne. As the Lizard King rushes towards them, Li Qiaowen asks if he has a plan. With a wide smile on his face, Sunjun replies, not really. Even with his speed, Sunjun is unable to dodge the Lizard King's attacks. The creature slams its tail, sending him crashing into the dungeon wall. Kicking away a boulder as he gets up, Sunjun excitedly mutters how a challenging opponent can help him test his skills properly. Suddenly, the Lizard King roars in the air. A purple glow appears around it. At the same time, a screen notifies him that the skill slow movements has been triggered. Purple chains rush to imprison him, but are negated as Sunjun casts his skill forceful breakthrough. The creature appears surprised at how easily he brushed off its skill. A voice rings out from their side. Turning around, they see Li Qiaowen appearing miserable, his hands and feet chained to the ground. The Lizard King immediately jumps towards him, intending to finish the weaker opponent first. Realizing he won't reach in time, Sunjun's eyes glow red as he summons the dead through his necromancy trait. In front of the Lizard King, skeletons wearing basic armor climb out of the ground. The creature easily destroys the weak skeletons, but that 1 second delay is all he needs, as Sunjun stacks the skill Wind's Grace 6 times, raising his speed by 60%. The next moment he arrives by the Lizard King, a blue sword arc cutting off its head and limbs. A notification appears announcing the Lizard King's death. It will take 14 days before a new boss appears, absorbing the Lizard King's soul. His stats increase: strength +1, agility +1, stamina +4, and strength +4. He also gains one of the Lizard King's skills, Spiritual Eyes. It allows him to perceive his opponent's invisible attacks. Outside the gate, an association official is sitting, waiting for the raid team to arrive. He thinks of the bonus he'll receive if the raid team clears the dungeon in 1 try. Then he scoffs to himself, thinking how that is only possible for rank hunters. Watching Sunjun and Li Qiaowen appear out of the dungeon gate, he assumes they probably escaped after clearing half the dungeon. But behind them, the blue portal starts turning gray, proving that the boss has been defeated. Running up to the two, he introduces himself as Xin Wujin and says that he wishes to purchase the gate's ownership. Hearing this, Li Qiaowen mentions Sunjun cleared the dungeon on his own and had the right to sell it. Xin Wujin's eyes widen, claiming that he must be a rank hunter, but Sunjun calmly replies that he is only a C rank. Getting straight to the point, He asks how much is the association willing to pay, to which the official replies 2 billion won, surprising Sun Jun at the insane amount. In an office, Lee Han-yeon, wearing an office uniform, can be seen working. Setting down the pile of documents, she complains about her work. Her phone rings. Talking it out, her eyes widened at the message. After returning from the Tower of Trials, Lee Han-yeon had been appointed leader of the management team for the challengers of the Tower of Trials. The higher-ups had made such a big deal out of it. But the challengers are in hiding and her role demands a lot of effort. She has only managed to get in touch with 10 challengers of the easy difficulty level. She wonders loudly what that person must be doing right now. Thinking back to how Han Sun-jiun completed the joint trial by himself, she sighs thinking she should have made him an offer. Just then her phone rings. Taking it out, she is surprised to see a message from Sun-jiun asking to meet up. Looking at the 1.3 billion in his account, wonders if he should buy a house or not. Just then the cafe door opens, and Lee Han-yeon enters wearing a skirt and heels. Sitting down, she pouts at him, complaining how he didn't reply to her messages and made her wait for so long. He apologizes, mentioning he doesn't spend much time on his phone. With a cheeky smile, she asks him to buy her a coffee and a cheesecake to make it up to her, to which he awkwardly agrees. After a while, Sun Jun informs her he will keep climbing the tower, but needs help joining a guild that will permit him to refuse any summons, not inquire about his activity inside the tower, and allows him to sue their dungeons whenever he needs. With a serious look on her face, Lee Han-yeon says such a situation is impossible. The guild would receive nothing while providing everything. Intertwining her fingers in his, she then requests him to join her white-silver guild, mentioning she will make his demands possible. Now lying on a bus traveling at high speeds, Han Sun-jiun thinks of his meeting with Lee Han-yeon and the conditions she had placed. The superiors of the guild will only fulfill his conditions if he first clears a C-rank dungeon by himself. As the bus arrives at Uijeongbu City's Najiang district, he decides to run to his destination as a warm-up. At the Chunbo Mountains, Lee Han-yeon walks up to the official posted near the blue portal. Presenting her credentials as a team leader of White-Silver Guild, she moves to wait under a tent, with some time remaining before her appointment. Just then Han Sun-jiun jumps beside her. "Ah, you are already here," she exclaims. The next moment, a strong air pressure bursts from behind him. The items under the tent fall and everyone loses their footing. Sun-jiun awkwardly picks up the fallen items, apologizing for running so quickly. "You came here early," says Lee Han-yeon, inwardly thinking how someone can run so fast. Entering the portal, they appear in a beautiful yellow wheat field under a partially cloudy sky reflecting the same shade of yellow. Lee Han-yeon mentions how she is wearing one of the guild's ranked item, Empress's necklace, possessing strong defensive and stealth abilities. Using the item, she disappears as Sun-jun starts moving forward. Activating spiritual eyes, he spots 3 invisible enemies quickly advancing towards him. He leaps backwards as 3 deadly poisonous demons jump towards him. Lee Han-yeon shouts at him to be careful. Astonished at the appearance of C-rank creatures, she exclaims this is an irregular dungeon. Sun-jun easily slices apart the monsters, leaving her wide-eyed with her mouth open in surprise. The next moment she smiles, with rosy blush on her cheeks, satisfied with her decision to support him. Sun-jun kills the final monsters before the red portal, the paralyzing effect of his sword activating at random, creating yellow arcs of lightning. Smashing the last monster to death, he calls over Lee Han-yeon as she stands still in the distance, amazed at the speed with which he defeats the monsters solo. Normally deadly poisonous demons require a whole party to defeat. Looking at Sun-jun's back as he enters the boss room, she realizes he will keep growing at an unbelievable rate. Sun-jun absorbs the stored souls, thinking that the boss won't be too strong based on the creatures outside. As they walk through a narrow passage between mountains, Lee Han-yeon claims how weird it is that they haven't sensed the boss yet. Just then, a blur falls between them, claws striking at her. The dangerous boss, with blue fire flowing across its body, smashes the ground where she stood previously. Lee Han-yeon realizes she is being princess carried by Sun-jun. As the monster releases a beam of blue flames towards the retreating pair, Sun-jun leaps up and places her on the edge away from danger. Activating all his movement abilities, he arrives at the monster's side and activates 3 lacerations. The next instant, the monster's body is cut into multiple pieces. The screen confirms Demon of the Blue Fire of Destruction has been slain. Staring at this scene from above, Lee Han-yeon wonders aloud who the real monster is. Arriving outside the boss room's portal, she speaks how he can now use the White-Silver Guild's resources. After clearing the dungeon, turning around with her back to him, She mentions that seeing Sun Ji-yoon's rate of improvement, it's clear he has chosen hard difficulty in Tower of Trials. With a pink hue on her face, she advises him to be careful, expressing how she desires to accompany him and witness his growth over the years. Sitting at the edge of a tall skyscraper, Sun Ji-yoon thinks over the stats he gained over these 3 days. The next instant, he is being transported to the tower, a wide grin plastered on his face. Appearing in the waiting room, he jumps up from his bed, chasing to start the 8th floor's trial right away. This time, a different screen appears, requesting him to choose a turning point from the 3 options: transcription, combat, and raid. After selecting combat, another notification appears informing him that a face-to-face conversation with an administrator specializing in combat will be provided because of his pioneer status. The next moment, he is teleported to a clearing inside a forest. He lands between multiple swords sticking into the ground, everything in his sight covered with pure white snow. A screen notifies him of entering the Iron Blood world. Using his skill Eyes of the Truth confirms the status of the new world. Another screen pops up, conveying the administrator Iron-Blooded Monarch's displeasure at his actions. Then a sword flies up to his side, asking him to follow it. He arrives at a house after a couple minutes. Entering, he sees a white-haired beauty sitting on a wooden chair, her regal armor adorned with gold. A fire crackles behind her in the fireplace. Looking closely, he notices she has red ruby eyes. The next second, she appears in front of him, her face inches away from his, staring at him closely. Walking back, she admits to wondering what kind of a monster he will be, but he appears quite normal, asking if she had been watching his trials. She replies of only knowing the results of those trials, mentioning that the trials below the 8th floor cannot be viewed by administrators. Looking at his shocked expression, she mentions that administrators are Jot gods, but merely subordinates to the tower. In response to his questions about floor invasion, she mentions that the towers of different worlds will one day unite. After the 20th floor, floor intruders will become more common. Finally, he asks what the Tower of Trials truly is. She speaks how she doesn't know much despite being an administrator. Administrators are simply those individuals who die after the 40th floor and obtain the authority to revive and become admins. This means that all the admins once tried to reach the top but ultimately failed. Sun Ji-yoon lets out a sigh, mentioning how he wished to learn more about the tower top. Hearing that, her expression tightens. The next moment she is grabbing him by his neck, holding him up against the door. Her eyes glowing red, she speaks with a terrifying look on her face. The tower top isn't something you can casually mention. Looking at his calm face, she asks why he isn't scared. He replies not having felt any killing intent from her. Furthermore, he says, destroying her door with his hands and landing outside, "I won't let you attack me so easily." She stands still with shock, outbelieving his actions. The next moment she laughs freely and smirks, speaking how she didn't chose wrong. Saying this, she offers Han Sun Ji-yoon a disciple contract. Appearing back in the waiting room after his meeting, he bolts right up and opens the exclusive store for contractors where special points are used. In the store, a list of authorities is present on the first page, with the 2nd and 3rd locked until the 10th floor. Reading the description of the 3 authorities, he decides to spend 1000 SP on the ranked authority, Serene Mind. It would allow him to make rational decisions even in the middle of high-intensity situations, increasing his likelihood of survival. Next, he enters the portal for the 8th floor's trial, appearing on the edge of a cliff. Beneath him are thousands of skeleton warriors and a majestic castle far away in the distance. Smashing down on the battlefield with such speed, the force generated, destroying hundreds of skeletons around him. He keeps killing the weak skeletons, each providing him only 0.08% proficiency towards necromancy. After a while, he used the stored souls to summon the dead skeletons, ordering them to fight against the rest. Leaving them to it, he activates his movement skills to the maximum, jumping across the whole army. Arriving at the castle, he comes face to face with a Lick, holding a book in his hands. Wearing a gold crown, blue ethereal fire flowing around him. Enraged at seeing the lowly human, the Lick summons 2 orcs, each at the level of the previous sand golem. Grabbing his sword, he makes quick work of the summoned creatures. Each orc provides him 1.2% proficiency, greatly satisfying him. Just as he raises his sword to kill the downed Lick, his eyes fall onto its book. Thinking to use the Lick as his personal proficiency generator, he orders it to summon the orcs again. Initially, the Lick hesitates, not understanding the weird request, but accepts when Sun Ji-yoon threatens to kill it. Satisfied with the proficiency gained after killing them, He orders the Lick to call back all his skeletons and put all his effort into summoning the guardian orcs. The next minutes follow the same pattern of Sunju killing the creatures, gaining proficiency, and the Lick summoning them over and over again. Finally, after farming proficiency on summoned creatures, it finally hits 100%, and his unique trait Necromancy levels up to rank C. Looking at the tired Lick barely sitting up with cracks appearing on its skull, Sun Ji-yoon thinks it has outlived its usefulness and kills it. The Lick almost seems glad at being killed, insulting him in its final moments. Achievement gained: a human who's beyond demon, increasing agility stat by 1. Proficiency increases by 17.4% on consuming the Lick's soul, along with other trial completion rewards. Arriving in the 9th floor's waiting room, a bunch of updates are announced. The administrators can now view the trials. The shop now sells C-ranked skills and the restrictions on the question vouchers have been lifted. An effect is added to his unique trait Necromancy, allowing him to inherit the proficiencies of the skills he gains from the consumed souls. And the probability of receiving any skills has been revealed to be 20%. Since he has now improved his D-ranked Hunter Dagger skill, he decides to buy an E-ranked basic swordsmanship skill from the store. He combines the two through skill synthesization, resulting in a C-ranked skill, Demon Slayer. The new skill provides a comprehensive improvement to its attacking ability, especially against non-humans. He wonders about how the tower is basically encouraging him to kill monsters. Excited at the amazing new skill, he is overcome by a desire to gamble away, combining all his new skills. Still, he controls himself enough to at least consider the skill compatibility and synthesization probability before attempting any combinations. Fast recovery and resistance to the laws of nature add to form the C-ranked Iron-Blooded Regeneration. It combines with D-ranked Pain Resistance to form the ranked Ashen Blood. It adds a strong regenerative and a nullification ability to his arsenal. Spending 50 points to turn off the waiting room's healing ability, Sun Ji-yoon slashes his arm off. To test the effects of Ashen Blood, excited, he slices his arm off multiple times, as it keeps regenerating good as new. With nothing going on in the community chat, he enters the portal for the 9th floor's trial. The objective this time is to kill all the monsters within the area. Arriving at the trial setting, he sees corpses of monsters lying around, and in front of him stands a white-haired old man, wearing gray robes, appearing calm and composed. Immediately, the tower informs him that the trial has been invaded by an intruder from the Muram world. The elder introduces himself as Beek Sunhak, a commander of the Muram League. The trial objective now updates, asking him to kill the intruder. As Sun Ji-yoon refuses to reveal his name, the elder mocks his caution, calling him narrow-minded. The next moment, the elder jumps towards him, swinging his sword as hundreds of sword projections materialize, all striking towards him. Sun Ji-yoon activates his movement skills, easily fending off all the attacks. Surprised at his skill, the elder apologizes for looking down on him. Letting out a breath, Sun Ji-yoon asks him to stop acting so noble and pretentious, mentioning how disgusting it seems, since the intruder's goal is to kill the challenger and steal the rewards. It's probably because we are from different dimensions that we do not agree, says the elder. Then he raises his sword, dark purple clouds appearing around him. The purple fog covers the battlefield, obstructing Sun Ji-yoon's view. A screen appears mentioning that he has been blinded for 5 seconds by a skill sword light. He quickly activates mana resistance, decreasing the time period from 5 to 2.5 seconds. Then he activates spiritual eyes, allowing him to see any invisible attacks. In that moment, he senses an attack coming for his head and barely dodges. This allows him to gain an achievement Blind Evasion, raising his agility by 2. Activating Ashen Blood, the slight cut on his neck heals away. The elder wonders loudly, curious as to how Sun Ji-yoon dodged his attack. Instead of answering, he activates all his movement skills, charging towards the elder. Their swords clash at the tips, rotating his body. Sun Ji-yoon kicks him, only for the elder to dodge and slash at it. For a moment, they stand still, each fending off the other's attack. Still keeping up the facade of a noble swordsman, the elder says how Sun Ji-yoon is using strange dark sorcery, referring to his use of the tower-awarded skills, while Sun Ji-yoon thinks in astonishment how their stats roughly equal each other, mentioning how he won't hold back this time. The elder again activates Sword Light, robbing Sun Ji-yoon of his vision. Again, he activates Mana Resistance and Spiritual Eyes. Doing so, he sees multiple slashes converging on him. Dodging all of them, he ignores the last strike till it arrives right next to his waist. Quickly activating Iron's protection of the wrought iron pendant, He uses his sword to block it. Despite all that, he still ends up losing half his arm, his shield cracking to pieces. As pain resistance activates, he analyzes that the attack power was too strong to block with iron's protection. Just as the purple fog disappears, Sun Jiun separates a boulder, then launches it towards the elder with his feet. As the elder bisects the boulder in two, he jumps towards his current off limb, grabbing it within teeth and brings it near the rest of the arm. Under the effects of ashen blood, his arm reattaches back into place. Watching all this, the intruder again mentions how he is relying on borrowed skills instead of his martial ability. Sun Jiun mentions how the elder's sword kai is also the result of a unique authority, pointing out his hypocrisy. Activating his movement skills to maximum, he arrives at the elder's side, striking at his head, all the while commenting he is going to die to these borrowed skills. Blocking Sun Jiun's attack with visible effort, the elder thinks back to how he invaded multiple trials in the past. He remembers how the challengers from the world Earth were the easiest to kill, especially when he activated his skill Sword's Light. After that, his opponents always went down with a single strike. Returning to the present, he thinks how this time the situation is totally different. While he successfully dodges the attack, Sun Jiun's strike ends up cutting a bunch of his hair. Sun Jiun jumps back, all his injuries healing completely, while the elder has a wretched appearance, huffing and out of breath with multiple bloody cuts on his face, his silver hair now falling everywhere. Multiple notifications appear mentioning the administrators are admiring Sun Jiun's skill. No longer appearing calm and composed, the elder's expression tightens with rage, furrowing his brows, hatred shining in his eyes. Without thinking, he activates all his skills. Sun Jiun's response is to laugh at him, mentioning how he talked shit about borrowed skills earlier. Adding further insult to injury, the tower deactivates many of his skills, decreasing his stats by 8. As a penalty for floor invasion. With no other option, the elder activates Sword's Light again, the dark clouds rolling in. Having gotten used to it by now, Sun Jiun activates both Spiritual Eyes and 3 lacerations, dodging the opponent's attacks and slashing his own sword into the dark. The mist slowly vanishes, revealing the trembling elder, with a sword slash glowing blue on his abdomen. Unable to believe the outcome, he mutters impossible as his body slowly separates into 2. Behind him, Sun Jiun calmly stands up with a confident smile, the tower congratulating him on completing the 9th floor's trial. His proficiency increases by 27% on absorbing Beak Sunhack's soul. Just like last time's invasion, the completion rewards are modified, now proportional to the increased difficulty. Skill gained, 6th Sense, an improvement over the original ranked skill Beast's Instinct. 35,000 points obtained. Additional reward, 1,000 SP has been obtained. Just as he moves to enter the portal, screens pop up, informing that the administrators are impressed and excited at his performance. He feels proud of the administrators acknowledging his efforts. Just then another message appears, the iron-blooded monarch warning him not to be bewitched by the other admins. Just then an unexpected message appears. The White Crane Swordmaster expresses its desire to add an authority to Sun Jiun's exclusive skill store. The iron-blooded monarch sends another message, reluctantly allowing him to accept the authority as a favor, expecting it to be an average authority. He no longer hesitates and presses yes. The tower informs him that the Authority Sword Kai Master has been added to the exclusive store, with White Crane Swordmaster asking him to remember this kindness. As he enters the waiting room of the 10th floor, another system expansion occurs, the public area now being accessible. Asking aloud, "Can you still watch what's happening here?" Sun Jiun tests if the administrators can observe the waiting rooms as well. Receiving no response, he coughs slightly to hide his embarrassment. Opening the contractor's exclusive store, he discovers that Sword Kai Master is a C+ ranked authority, allowing him to strengthen bladed weapons with mana, Kai, or other energies. Of course, the mana consumption depends on the duration of activation. Sun Jiun's gaze fell on the second page of the authority, discovering he can now unlock it. Scrolling down, he only notices a C+ rank bone reconstruction authority that he can currently afford along with Sword Kai Master. Remembering us fight with Beak Sunhack, he decides to buy the Sword Kai Master for 1,500 SP. With only 500 SP remaining, he activates the newly purchased authority, comparing it with the skill 3 lacerations. The authority feels as if it uses mana more effectively, like flowing water, whereas in activating 3 laceration, Mana flows into the sword like a sudden wave. With every extra minute of activation, the mana consumption increases by 2%. Calculating, Sun Ji-yoon discovers it would take 50 minutes of activation to deplete his mana completely. Looking over the skill Sixth Sense, it improves his instincts, allowing him to make better judgments. Scrolling through the comments on the new public area, Sun Ji-yoon decides to enter it, vanishing into the air. In the public area, a Korean hunter and a nun are walking, excited at exploring the new area. Just as they leave the public area, the Korean finds himself stuck on the ground, the result of multiple entrapping skills being used on him. The nun tries to protect the hunter from the 3 murderers that appear, only for them to start bullying her as well. Just then, a black hooded individual quietly passes by them. Surprised at the newcomer's nonchalant attitude, they use their restricting skills on him, only for their effects to be negated. Activating forceful breakthrough and mana resistance, Sun Ji-yoon pulls the sword out of his inventory. Addressing the 3 wide-eyed thugs, he mentions that they started this. Activating instant acceleration, Sun Ji-yoon slices the necks of the 2 thugs, and the third one standing behind activates an ice shield. Winding back his fist, he punches the ice shield to pieces. Seeing this, the thug begs for mercy, only for Sun Ji-yoon to stab his neck before he can finish his words. Absorbing their souls, his proficiency increases by 6.7%. The nun apologizes for not helping with the fight as it ended too soon, and leaves after bowing. In exchange for saving his help, the hunter raises his hand forward, the 3 bodies being absorbed into a slit in his hand. Shortly after, Sun Ji-yoon receives a message that the administrator Glutton has added a skill Wings of Steel to the shop. Just then, a few screens pop out, the administrator's White Crane Swordsmaster and Glutton fighting over Sun Ji-yoon while the iron-blooded monarch complains of insects flying around her contractee. Another administrator, Dark Devil, simply watches the 3 argue. Stupefied at the childish behavior, he realizes there must be some benefit the administrators are expecting from the challengers. Walking together, the hunter speaks how the public area is divided into the arena, auction, and a gambling site. He further mentions there are 3 known dimensions invading Earth currently. These are the Aries, Murim, and the Kalyan. Sun Ji-yoon analyzes that the Black Knight must be from Aries, the White Crane from Murim, while the Kalyan dimensions include elves, fairies, and humanly beasts. The hunter reveals he learnt all this using his question vouchers. Reaching the public area, the hunter hands over his business card, revealing him to be the team leader of the challenger managing team in the Hunters Association. Then they both part, the hunter looking forward to the gambling while Sun Ji-yoon makes his way to the arena. Entering the arena, he hears the shout of the spectators gambling on the fighters. He sits on an empty red seat in a small cubicle, a screen asking whether he wishes to fight or bet. Just then a crowd forms behind a red-haired beauty sitting in a similar seat, her fans excited at recognizing her. The Witch of Hellfire, Catherine, they exclaim excitedly. Meanwhile, Catherine is disappointed at finding no new opponents, probably because of her insane win streak. Unfortunately for Catherine, fight records in the arena are made public. Here's showing a victory count of 17 with no losses. Just then she receives a fight request from Sun Ji-yoon, offering up the Demon Slayer skill as a reward. She grinds while accepting, amused how someone with 0 victories picked her. As both challengers are transported to the Colosseum, she praises his bravery, then says how he should have chosen better. As the duel begins, she mentions how he can learn from his mistake, then activates her authority Birth of Fire, a huge ball of fire appearing above her raised hand. She launches it towards him, speaking it's over with a confident smirk. At the last moment, Sun Ji-yoon activates his own authority Sword Kai Mastery, slicing apart the flames. The flames gradually disappear as Catherine looks at him dumbfounded. A learning experience, huh? I'll be the one to give you that, speaks Sun Ji-yoon, his sword pointing towards her. That's it for now. If you made it all the way to the end, make sure to subscribe for future content.